15 years ago or so, I was working in Washington. I was working at the Bishops' Conference at the time, and I'd had a call during the week from the Basilica of the National Shrine. If you've ever been to Washington, the biggest church, the place where that large mass is for pro-life. And they had simply called and said that, could I possibly take the 5 o'clock evening mass in their lower crypt on a given day? And I rarely got called for it, so I said that I'd be happy to take it. Went over and took the 5 o'clock mass. Regular work day. At the end of my work day, I got back to the sacristy, taking off the vestments, getting ready to go home for dinner. And one of the servers came in and said, there's somebody outside the door that's asking to talk to the priest who said Mass. Well, that could be any number of things, usually pretty small. And I said, yeah, tell him I'll be right out. I've just got to get my stuff off. And went out. And there was a young woman, obviously very expectant. And I figured, well, she must probably want a blessing for her child. So I said, what can I do for you? And she quietly walked up and she said, Father, would it be a sin to abort my baby? Well, all of a sudden, that day changed in a hurry. In an instant, you're dealing with questions that literally can be life and death, and heaven and hell, and all of the implications. So I said, let's go for a walk. And we walked all through. If you've ever been there, there's a lot of corridors there, and we could get away from the crowds and chat a little bit. She said that she had been to the doctor who had done some of the prenatal tests, and they had told her that her child had some very significant genetic problems and would suffer greatly. And so she said she had the abortion scheduled the next morning, that she had come to Mass. But she said, I just don't want my baby to suffer. So we talked a little bit, and I said, first of all, I said, is it a boy or a girl? She said, it's a boy. I said, have you given a name yet? And she said, no. I said, fine. From now on, we're going to call him, and I forget what name I gave. I said, because we don't want to call him it. We want to talk to him about him. And I said, your husband, where's he? He's back in the Philippines. What does he say? He says, don't do this because it's a human person, but I don't want my baby to suffer. So we talked. And I said, I will get you any help, any support that you need. That child needs you now more than ever. So we talked, and finally she said, I will think about it, and we exchanged email addresses, and I think I went home and probably emailed her in the evening. And then the next morning I think emailed again. And I emailed during the day and nothing. And I emailed later in the week. And for weeks I heard nothing. I was kind of despondent about it. We had set up with one of the pro-life places all the help that could be possibly arranged. And I figured that it had probably taken place. And then several weeks later, an email popped up from her, apologizing for not getting back to me. She'd been very busy, and I said, well, can we talk? And we exchanged phone numbers, and we talked. And she said she had gone for the appointment the following morning, but they did one last survey and said the child is too far advanced for the laws in Washington. We'll just need to send you across the state borderline a few minutes away, make another appointment. She said, that's when I said, I can't do this. And so she said she was going forward and working and doing, and we talked again about the kind of help. She said, no, I've got what I need. But we'd agreed to keep in touch. So the next time I heard from her, I was actually sitting on the tarmac of the airport with the doors not yet closed on the airplane, getting ready to fly home for Thanksgiving, and my phone rings. And she said, it's me. I just wanted to tell you I'm in the maternity ward. I'm in contractions, and I'll be giving birth soon. I said, I'll be praying all through this flight. As soon as I landed, I called again, and she answered. And she said, baby's been born, and the doctors have said there is only the most minor difficulty that they can take care of. In other words, the whole premise had been faulty. We then talked and said, what about your husband? And she said, well, he's trying to get his visa now, but that will take months. So I called a name that is not always happy for us, Cardinal McCarrick, because I was working in Washington and he was the Archbishop. And I explained the situation, and he was very influential. Within 24 hours, he had arranged for the visa to be issued and for the father to come. And I ended up baptizing that child some weeks later. Somewhere today, there's a 15-year-old boy in high school whose future could have been so different, so drastic, so short. Not because of this, but because of this, because of the church and the church's faith. We need to keep witnessing on a large scale, on that one-on-one scale. Everything that we need to do must be to be true to our faith, but to bring forth the love of Christ. That is the way that this issue will be solved. It seems sometimes very dark, very obscure, but we have to be so convinced we're doing the Lord's work. That God gives us the grace that we need when we need it. We can keep working on this, and someday God's grace will give us the justice, the rightness, the love of life that He has shown to us.